we're wishing you a fabulous Friday because it is World War II Project Day. So if you're stuck in traffic, you are lucky because we have in studio with us World War II veteran Phil Ansted. He was in the 84th Infantry, the Rail Splitters, and we're talking about his time in Europe. And we wanted to back up just a little bit to when you came on the beach at Normandy. I think, Molly, you had a couple of questions.
Right. You said that when you got to Omaha Beach, you got there 2 months after D-Day, and then you started to walk us through where you went. But let's back up and talk about that. What was it like with your landing craft getting up towards the beach and getting onto the beach? What did you see 2 months later?
Well, when we left our ship to go on the landing craft, we landed the same way the guys did on D-Day. And when they got close enough to shore, the back end went down and you walked off and jumped in the water, hoped it wasn't too deep, and waded ashore with all the stuff on your back. Some guys had a little trouble getting down in the water too deep, but we could still see, and there still are many of the barriers that were on Omaha Beach.
Mm-hmm.
The troops must have had a terrible time. It was open. Can you imagine somebody up on the cliffs above you shooting down on you?
It truly is sacred ground.
It is.
It is sacred ground.
Finally, when we assembled on the beach, then we hiked off, 5 miles up to a place where we could stay, but they told us even then, don't go on the edges of the fields because there still were booby traps and things around 2 months after the initial day. There were pillboxes up above, and of course we had our Navy was there to pound as well as they could, and I think we were lucky that the Germans weren't more ready for us. They had the fortifications, but they didn't have their troops there like they could have had, and the casualties could have been much worse than they were.
And they were significant.
They were
Yes.
significant.
Yeah, can you imagine climbing up a rope ladder to try to get up to the top and somebody up there shooting down at you?
I think about Pointe du Hoc and the Army Rangers.
Oh,
what they were able to do is absolutely amazing.
It is amazing.
Yeah, you've probably had some people that were there at that time that you've talked to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what were you carrying? What kind of equipment did you have on your back, Phil?
Well, I was a combat medic in a machine gun platoon.
Okay.
So I had a regular pack with most everything, plus 2 side packs with morphine, all different kinds of things. In fact, there was some elixir hydrate in there. That's for colds, but it's not good for you. You can overdose on it, but I had some of the guys, of course, they would have a cold and they wanted a sip of that to make them feel better. But anyway, that was the equipment. I didn't have the things I really needed to sleep on.
Mm.
It turned out that when we got to our place, my duffel bag wasn't there with my shelter half, and so my buddies...
So your baggage got lost? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it hadn't gotten there yet. And in fact, it was a week or so before, but 2 buddies of mine let me share their tent. You had a shelter half, and it went together to make a lean-to or a pup tent kind of thing, and that's what we slept in. And they had shared their blankets to keep me warm, and so it was a while before I got what I needed there.
Yeah, it's a true brotherhood to take care of each other.
Yeah, actually, both of them I saw after the war. We used to have reunions for our division, and we used to go over the good times we'd had.
What are their names, just so we can remember forever?
One was Doug Ward. It was Douglas F. Ward. When he called me one time, I said, I even remember your middle initial.
Yeah.
And the other one, let's see, I don't know if I can remember the other fellow's name.
Okay.
But you mentioned your name is Munson.
Uh-huh.
One of my buddies was named Munson. He was from Salt Lake City.
Okay.
Do you have relatives there?
Not in Salt Lake. We
Oh.
came from my husband came from North Dakota and Chicago and that
Oh,
area. Yeah. So, Phil, my understanding was being a medic was one of the most dangerous positions. How did you end up becoming a medic, and is that true? Was it pretty dangerous?
Well, yes. In fact, they were painting a white circle on each side of your steel helmet with a red cross on it so that people knew who you were, so they could call you to help them. And we got word that that made an excellent target for the Germans, and so we got rid of that.
Yeah.
But there were times when the medic had to go when the rest of the guys could stay down. I remember before our first attack, we had one of our tanks in front of our house where we were staying, and they got a direct hit. And I went out, and the tank caught fire in addition. And of course, you can imagine if the 88 shell got inside, it would cause the other ammunition to explode. But so the guys got out, and this one man laid there. His leg was broken so that his foot was right up by his hip.
Oh my gosh.
And I gave him a shot of morphine to help the pain. And he had 2 sets of outfit on. He had shirts, underwear, coats, and it was so cold. And for me to give him a shot, I had to use my bayonet or my shelter knife to cut through his clothes to get to his body so I could give him a shot. But medics...
Did you carry any weaponry at all?
Well, I did have a pistol when I was wounded, but I wasn't supposed to have any. But we were in the little town of Lafarth, Germany, and I was reading the other day about the report of our division, what was going on, and they mentioned there that we didn't have food or water, and we were going from house to house looking in the basements to see what kind of canned goods people had, canned fruit and different things. And so we went from one street across to another. When we got to this ditch in between, the mortar shells started coming in, and we were used to that, really. All you did is you got laid down on the ground. Mm-hmm. And so we went on and and the Germans, of course, they must have seen us go into this house in the basement. When we came out the door, I took about 3 steps, and I actually saw the mortar shell in the air coming down. And when it exploded, I had enough time to just quickly turn my back, and so I was wounded in my foot, and my leg, and my back, and my hand. And then I went to see what could be done about it, and they said, we've got much more wounded men than you. You better get out of here. So I took a broom and cut the bristles off to make a crutch, and so I hiked 3 miles till I could get back to an aid station. And then they took care of me and put me in an ambulance to go back to a field hospital. And when I got to the field hospital, I opened the door of the ambulance, opened up, and there were 4 Germans.
Oh, no.
And you can imagine
Yeah.
how
That
you
probably
would
didn't
feel.
go over real well, huh?
And anyway, they were prisoners.
Yeah.
And so finally I went from there to a Dutch hospital, and back I went to Coventry, actually, in the hospital, and finally came back to the States.
You know, Phil Ansted, that's one of the things that I had not really thought about or understood, and the more that we talk to you guys, is you guys were hungry. I mean, there were K rations. I talked to a friend of mine who her father was he was a messenger, and he would go out at night, and he would come back with like eggs and things, and people were really glad to see him. One time he came back with jelly, and I just hadn't really thought about. I mean, you guys were in really tough conditions, and you continued to step forward and fight against tyranny. I mean, I understand, Molly, why they're called the greatest generation.
Well, even when we were on the front, if it was a town, you lived in the basement of the houses. And for Thanksgiving that year, would you believe that our cooks sent us hot turkey dressing, cranberry sauce, everything you could want for Thanksgiving? But the troops all around us, all they got was a sandwich.
Huh. Yeah, and so...
And why was that? Why was that you got something different?
Well, I don't know. It was just our cooks for my unit were trying to make us feel better.
And they were very creative. That is, that's pretty amazing. So the other guys got sandwiches and you got turkey dinner, huh?
But there were times that were hot too. I remember one time the Germans infiltrated the town that we were in after dark. And nobody knew about it until later. And we ended up, we didn't get hardly any casualties, but we killed, I think it was 15 Germans and captured 25, something like that.
And Phil, you said that you didn't have a weapon as a medic until after you got hurt. How did you end up getting a weapon?
Oh, well, one of the guys loaned me his pistol while I went through the towns because they thought, you know, I wasn't really, in fact, I didn't even have my aid bags with me or anything. But one thing, as a medic, you have a lot of time sometimes to do things. You know, they train you, you do all the physical stuff. When you go on a hike, you're the guy that pictures the people up and things like that. But when you're in one place, my diaries, you can just see page after page that I wrote down things that were happening. And so just to break up the monotony, I would stand guard duty at night or, you know, do different things like that. Just as I went on this food patrol that time, it was just, I was one of the guys and they accepted me very well.
Awesome. Well, we're going to go to break and then we'll come back and I want to continue this conversation, and I kind of want to hear, if you don't mind, when we get back about what you had already heard about Bastogne, because you were headed that way when you got hurt. So this is the Americhicks, Molly and Kim. It's World War II Project Day. We love the greatest generation, and we are on this project to record as many stories as we can. Stick with us. We'll be right back. Check out Americhicks Facebook to see this live right now.
Actually, I didn't know anything about